Welcome everybody to the Money Matters series, your guide to financial success. I am here with Gerald Bilker and myself, who basically we want to educate you. We want to share our knowledge with you so that you can make informed decisions when it comes to real estate and your financial future. And today we are going to be talking about the FHSA First Home Savings Account. So I will let Gerald lead us with this conversation, and I will interject and ask questions that I believe the consumers would probably ask that I know that my buyers have questions about. So let's dive into this and see what we can find out.
Sounds amazing. I love that, Michelle, and I love that we're working together and we have the same mindset, just wanting to better kind of the general population when it comes to topics in real estate and personal finance, because as we all know, every single day we have to either we're going to work for money and we need to know what to do with it, or hey, the real estate side, everybody wants to be owning a home and going through that process too. And unfortunately, it's not taught in school, so we need to learn and seek out this information ourselves. And there is a lot of information out there, but that's where I believe that you and I do a great job at kind of fine combing through and really picking out what's important. So yeah, talking about the FHSA, the First Home Savings Account, I personally believe it is the account that if anybody wants to start saving for their first home, that they should open. And so a few key points of the FHSA that I'll talk about, but I always start the conversation of an investment account as a reminder, as it's a garage. And you and we can control the type of car or vehicle that we park inside of our garage, but the garage just has a different job. So the FHSA is the best of both worlds between the RRSP, the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, and the Tax-Free Savings Account, the TFSA. And so when you're contributing to a FHSA, you're going to get a tax deduction like you would when you're contributing to your RRSP. But on the way out, when you go to buy your first home, it's completely tax-free. And although I know generally sometimes people kind of intercept and say, well, Gerald, I know there's the RRSP homebuyers plan that you can withdraw money from as well, tax-free. You're right, you can. And in fact, recent kind of government legislation increased that amount from $35,000 up to $60,000. But the difference between the homebuyers plan and the First Home Savings Account is when you withdraw money out of the homebuyers plan, you have to pay it back over 15 years. In the FHSA, you take it out tax-free and you could run away with it if you're going to buy your first home. You do not have to pay it back. And so that's where I personally believe if you're kind of starting from ground zero, open an FHSA first and start contributing to that.
Now, first-time home buyer, this is considered a person who has never purchased a home before, or tell me the 5-year rule thing.
Yes, I know that's absolutely.
I know that you can't have owned a home in the last 5 years prior to opening up the account or something. I don't want to create confusion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is exactly it. So it is 4 years at the calendar year after that you buy that you haven't lived in a primary residence, that you would then be considered again a first-time home buyer, and you could then open an FHSA and contribute to it and take advantage of that as well. Right. So yeah, great plan for sure.
And they have to be aged 18 all the way up to 71.
Correct. So who is eligible? Exactly, age 18 to 71, and they have to be a resident of Canada, of course. But yes, anybody. And so as a result, what I've been helping even parents with is, hey, when their child turns 18, open up an FHSA, because parents can also gift money to their child on their behalf, and then they could take it and contribute to the FHSA and save for that down payment. When it comes to the contribution amounts, It starts on the year you open the account. And so it's $8,000. If you have a spouse that you're buying a house with for the first time, then that of course would make it $16,000. But you could carry forward that room up to 1 year. So the most that an individual will ever be able to kind of contribute in 1 year is $16,000. But again, with that being said, that's still a lot of room. 16,000 times 2, $32,000 that you could be contributing over that period of time to be able to then take out and buy your house. Plus growth on top of that. So that's just what you've contributed. But over 5 years, you could contribute a total of 40,000. So if you're now looking at this as the FHSA and the homebuyers plan, well, you could take out 60 grand out of the homebuyers plan through your RSP and repay that in 15 years. But also now with the FHSA, you can withdraw up your $40,000 that you've contributed plus any growth. So if you've made 5, 6, 7, 8% over that 5, 6, 7 years that you've been contributing, and say, hey, I don't know the exact numbers on top of my head, but say that 40 grand turned into 50, well, you could take out all 50 tax-free, even though you've only put in 40,000. And so now naturally with housing prices, and I know interest rates are kind of going to be going in the right direction, but people require a larger down payment. And this just allows them to be able to access funds that they may already have or plan to accumulate over a period of time.
Plus, that additional income that they make on that investment can actually help to give them more room to purchase, right? So it gives them an opportunity to maybe be able to afford a little bit more than what they normally could have, right?
Correct. Yep, absolutely. And like people can take advantage of the FHSA in so many ways. And I know because it's relatively new, most people like haven't, maybe they've heard of it, but they don't really know the ins and the outs. And like, for example, like even on the, say you're helping somebody, a first time home buyer, buy their first home, and they're kind of going through the process and closing, they've got pre-approved. And let's say now they have this down payment that they kept in cash. Well, what they can do is literally take, and if there's two individuals buying this house, they could each take $8,000, dump it in their FHSA. I would probably hold cash inside of it at that point because your timeline's very short, but you could put it in for a few days, then take it out, and you've been able to take this money out tax-free, but now you took advantage of the tax deduction as well. And so just an extra way, because of course, that could
for my brother, right?
Sorry?
You did that for my brother, and he didn't know, right? And it was like a tight little deadline, and you're like, no, we can make this work. You have to, like, this would be very beneficial to you to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because we sat down and talked about it. He let me know, hey, I'm going to need a little bit of money for this down payment. I said, great. We sat down and I said, well, hey, this money's sitting in a TFSA. Let's move it over into an FHSA. And as a result, he's got that $8,000 tax deduction for the same down payment money that he was using anyways. He already got approved for the house. So just these little things that could make a big difference in the months and years to come.
So it's $8,000 cap per year, essentially, right? And so up to the 40,000, like up until the 40,000 has been met, or like how long can it be open for again?
Great question. So the account can be open for 15 years total. Of course, if I'm buying my first home at 60, then even though there's more than 15 years, age 71 is the kind of the cutoff. That I would either have to close the account and take that money as all income, and if I'm redeeming money from an FHSA not to buy my first home, then I'm good. That's going to be taxable income. Or I can transfer it to an RSP, and it doesn't interrupt my RSP contribution room either. It can be transferred over and without paying any taxes, fees, anything like that. But kind of even taking a step back, to answer the $8,000 a year kind of comments, where, for example, when the account was kind of initiated and released last year in 2023, what I helped a lot of people do was, hey, I know you may not feel you're in the position to contribute consistently right now, but let's put 25 bucks in an FHSA right now. So then the following calendar year, January 1st, 2024, they received an additional $8,000. So now they can contribute $15,975 because they opened it in 2023. And so it's the same situation. If somebody, maybe they don't know if they're able to contribute consistently or even max out the 8,000, but even if they put 25 bucks in right now, or a small contribution, 25 a month, it's going to allow you to carry forward room into next year. And you just never know nowadays. There's this greatest transfer of wealth happening, inheritances, like you can be coming into money. And if you don't have this room, I mean, you're just not, unfortunately, prepared to take advantage of the FHSA in this case. So it definitely doesn't hurt someone just opening the account, even if they can't contribute to it consistently.
So as a parent of a young adult of 18 plus, it would be highly favorable for them to encourage their child to open this account up and get some money into it. Now, is there a minimum? You have to put like $5 in, 25 bucks. It doesn't matter, right? Or
initial minimum is $25 one time in terms of a monthly contribution. 25 bucks as well. But again, very minimal. Even if they're just opening it, putting $25 in to have the account open, that is the minimum, but an ongoing. So. And
if our first time home buyers stop buying Starbucks every day, that money can grow substantially. You have no idea. I am one of those people who realize after time how much craziness you spend at Starbucks or Tim Hortons even. I mean, McDonald's, totally. It's all the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It does all add up. And I think that's probably one of the things that people almost kind of overlook because they think they have to have hundreds and thousands of dollars to be able to contribute to an FHSA or a TFSA and invest for their future. But the truth is everything counts, especially when we're talking about someone turning 18 years old and just getting the ball rolling. Like if I could go back in time, I think I personally started out at a decent age in my early 20s, but if that extra 3, 4, 5 years, that's a huge difference yet. So, yeah.
And then, so whether this is the parent or the child or, young adult listening, where can they go to open up these accounts? They can contact yourself. They can contact me. Is this something they can go to a normal bank for? What does that look like?
Great question. So all financial it should be. I'm not going to speak for every single financial institution because I know it kind of was like this layered kind of certain institutions started at different times, but most financial institutions, whether it's banks, investment companies, I know even kind of the classic Questrade, Wealthsimple, but that's where because the FHSA across the board, the account itself is going to be the same, whether you go to the bank, whether you go to Questrade, whether you come and have a conversation with us. But the difference is what is inside the account. And so if somebody like, for example, 18, 19, 20 years old isn't planning to buy a house for the next 5, 7, 10 years, if they go to the bank, unfortunately, the bank's going to try and put them into a GIC or in a high interest savings account, which again, a couple percent, it's not efficient enough. It has to be invested if you have a longer timeline, averaging 8, 9, 10% over the long term. And that's where investment companies have access to investment products that have track record of decades that have been able to offer those type of returns. And of course, I'm not here to tell you that, hey, I'm guaranteeing rates of return, but history often repeats itself. And on the stock market, that's why when making recommendations, I make recommendations based on investments that have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I'm not going to be telling you to put your money in something that's been around for less than a year and rely on it. It hasn't seen enough yet, so to speak. So that's really the biggest difference. Where if somebody said to me, hey, Gerald, I want to buy a house within 6 to 12 months, truthfully, I would say, hey, maybe look at what the GIC rates are at the bank, but be prepared when you are in a GIC. Most GICs are locked in. maybe look at high interest savings accounts as well. And that's something we offer. But it's just even more than just the rates of return. It's the financial planning, it's the advice, it's the full picture.
It's very unique to each different individual person, right?
Totally. Yeah. So, but yeah,
but anybody that knows that they're going to be purchasing a house between the ages of 18 and 71, you might as well get that and let it, even if you've maxed it out and you haven't purchased it, you can let it accumulate, right?
100%. Yep.
So
absolutely.
Why not? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And I read a lot of articles and just industry articles about this stuff. And that's a conversation that a lot of people have kind of mentioned, that they're utilizing the FHSA, even if they're not kind of planning to buy a house necessarily, even though they qualify to, maybe they've maxed out their RSP. Well, as a result of putting the next $40,000 in the FHSA, they can still roll that over into their RSP, and they just took advantage of more tax deductions. So yeah, there's definitely there's a lot to it that you could be taking advantage of. Taking advantage of the account.
For
so
sure. One other aside now, I'm just trying to think of what people would be thinking right now. And can somebody set up a beneficiary for an account like this? Is it important that they do that?
Great question. So how the FHSA works in terms of the beneficiary, it's similar to the TFSA. Well, identical pretty well, because with a TFSA or FHSA, you can have what's called a successor holder. And a successor holder is a spouse or common law partner. And so if you are deciding to have your spouse or common law partner become the beneficiary of your FHSA or TFSA, I would encourage you to make them your successor holder, because what happens is, if say I was to pass away and I opened an FHSA and I made my wife Hannah a successor holder, she's going to inherit my FHSA, the money inside of it tax-free, but also my contribution room, and it can roll directly into her FHSA, into an account in her name. Whereas a beneficiary, what happens is they can get paid this money tax-free, and then not necessarily, I mean, you can get around it, but it's just more tax efficient to, if you want your spouse or common law partner, name them the successor holder, whereas the beneficiary would just get the money tax-free, so to speak. So
that's for somebody who does not have a significant other, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So
a successor for anybody who's in a relationship, common law, married, whatever, and then a beneficiary if somebody is not in a relationship with another party.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Very good. I think we've covered.
I know. I'm just trying to think.
I'm trying to channel my inner buyer and the parents and the buyers. What would I ask if that were me?
Yeah. And actually, one last point that I think is important too, because when people ask about the tax deductions, whereas it's a little bit different than the RSP, because when you contribute to an RSP, you have the first 60 days of a calendar year, and that first 60 days you can use for the previous year or the current year. And then you have the remainder of the year. Did I say that right? Yeah, remainder of the year. But with the FHSA, there's nothing like that. It's January 1st to December 31st. So if I made a contribution January 1, I don't have the opportunity to say, hey, I want to use this for my previous year's tax return. I could only use it for that given year, which may not make a big impact to many people, but just something that, again, people should know. Right.
Absolutely. And then, of course, if you guys have additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to myself or Gerald. We're here to be, informative to you. You may have specific questions in regards to you personally, which will, we will need to consider personal recommendations at that point. This is just kind of general, sort of generic information that you could find, on the internet, but we figure we might as well package it together so you can kind of get those FAQs kind of thing all in one place, and hopefully in under 20 some odd minutes. So I think that we've been able to hit the nail on the head here and bring as much value about the FHSA as we could.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great program. Strongly encourage people, first-time home buyers, start with the FHSA and then go from there. It's a great program, and I wish more people took advantage of it for buying their first home and achieving that.
And even the parents too. Like, I look at this as, I want to be an informed parent for my children so that I can't expect them to know how to make these educated decisions on their own. It usually has to come from a parent or a family member or somebody who is well educated. So I look at this as an opportunity to, give my children the advantage of not knowing or not having this information. So
totally. And I think so many parents want to do that, but that's the difference maker right there. What you just said, you have to be informed first. You can't just say, hey, go do this. And it's like, hey, now I can actually guide you and give you proper financial guidance and advice to be able to help you get further ahead than where I was at your age, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I wish I knew this information or maybe have these things available to me when I was younger, but now it's, as parents, both of us being parents, it's part of our duty to make sure that we help our children make the best decisions. And so anybody that wants to reach out, you can send us both DMs. You can reach out to us, whichever platform you're watching this on. Feel free to send us a message. We will get back to you promptly. And stay tuned, because we will have more episodes like this, because money matters. Thanks so much.
Yes, it does. No problem. Appreciate you. This is amazing.
Have a good day.
You too.